Welcome to Advocate Today. I'm Tracy Gilchrist. There's a reality competition series that's pushing celebrities to the edges of their physical and mental capabilities. Fox's Special Forces World's Toughest Test is a thrilling watch and will have you feeling winded on your couch with its wild challenges and obstacles. Out Olympian and actor Gus Kenworthy is no stranger to this kind of demand. He's an Olympian who's won medals for skiing, but he recently departed the show. I caught up with Gus about his experience as a contestant. Of course. Well, we're here to discuss Special Forces, which is a reality show on Fox that really pushes people to their absolute limit. And it's loaded with celebrities. And I want to begin by asking what about this reality series and the way it's constructed and what you had to go through appealed to you when you first heard about it? I mean, because it's grueling.
It really is. I honestly, I don't know. I think I didn't know enough about the show when I agreed to do it.
Yeah.
I think if I'd known, maybe I would have taken a little bit longer. But I kind of was like, oh, it sounds cool. They're like, yeah, you might have to jump out of a plane. You might have to like jump into the ocean. You might have to like crawl through tunnels. And I was like, okay, that all sounds kind of fun. I like doing things like that. Um, and then there was like a pretty extensive psychological evaluation. And I was like, okay, wait, what are we doing again? Um, but it was fun, sort of.
Well, I've seen a few episodes now, and you're doing quite well, as far as I've seen. So, congratulations on that. And I wonder, would you talk a little bit about some of the activities that they have you doing, and maybe share which ones kind of pushed you to your personal limit?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the hardest ones were the ones that were just straight up physical. We had to push this Jeep with a bunch of weaponry and equipment inside of it across this massive, like, desert floor, sand dunes. And it was so incredibly heavy. And it was not at all like when you've pushed a car in neutral, like, it would not go. It was so heavy. And it was just so incredibly fatiguing, even to get it to move a foot. And we had to move it like a mile. So that was truly one of the most physical things I've ever done in my life. I was so wrecked afterward. The tear gas was horrible. It felt like nothing I've ever experienced. It felt like you were like breathing in pain, like your eyes and lungs felt like they were burning from the inside. It was just really awful. But a lot of the other challenges I actually did kind of like. I mean, I liked like rappelling down the building and down the cliff face and like traversing across the canyon and doing some of those things. I thought that was fun. But the thing that was actually the hardest for me was like just constantly being stuck in a state of limbo. Like we would go back to the barracks and
Yeah.
not really get instruction. And so we didn't know if we would be in there for 5 minutes or an hour or 5 hours. And you couldn't like get undressed, even though it was 120 degrees, because at any second you could get called on and you'd have to be ready. And you didn't want to be the one slowing the group down.
Right. That's terrible because you can't ever relax or let your
Yeah.
body, yeah, you're in the
You know,
height.
you're like so wrecked and you just want to rest. Like you're not really resting. You're kind
Yeah.
of like,
Well, I know I've done AIDS Life Cycle a bunch of times. I know you have done it at least once, maybe twice.
just once, yeah.
Yeah. And so I wonder on a scale on a scale of that, which is riding your bike from San Francisco to LA over 7 days, where does Special Forces land? I mean, how do you compare?
It's so there were some similarities. I mean, AIDS life cycle is no joke. It's also really physically demanding. But like the pushing the car across the desert, for example, that kind of is like the quad buster day on AIDS life cycle. But if you were doing it with like sandbags dragging behind you,
Oh God, yeah.
it was just it just took everything out of you.
Mhm.
Kind of similar in that you'd be done and you'd go back to sleeping in tents, but with AIDS life cycle, you'd get to relax and you'd get to
Right.
really mingle with everyone, and it was kind of like a state of community, and there was food, and it was somewhat comfortable. This was like we were still I don't know, hanging out and getting to know one another, but as I said, we were all like completely on edge, and we
Yeah.
weren't getting enough food, and everyone was stressed out. So it was kind of like high tension at all times.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I saw an episode where someone got a little bit of special treatment because they were terrified of this thing that they had to do, and they got a little hand holding from the special forces guys who are running the whole show. And you got a little irritated by this and your kind of sense of competition and fairness really kind of bubbled up. And I'm a Libra. I like fairness. I related to that. I was like, I get that. But then you were called out for that. And I wonder, would you talk about confronting that in this arena and what that was like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, that was like one of the biggest takeaways and lessons learned is that I was really seeing the whole experience through an individual athlete's perspective, and I am really about fairness and equality and everything, whether it's in sport or whether it's in life.
Yeah.
It's like a value that I stand by. And going into the show, they had said like, you're not getting your phones, you're not getting this, you're not getting any special treatment. Everyone is stripped down to nothing. You don't even have a name anymore. You're reduced to a number. You are all on the same level. And then to then sort of see someone get something that wasn't that, I think was what kind of frustrated me.
Sure.
But ultimately, I think I handled it wrong. I was kind of just rude. And I think it even got like further heightened in the edit. In actual reality, it was less bad than it was made out to be. But then when it came across on TV, even I was like, oh God, like clutching my pearls, not super happy with, I
With
guess the way
the
it's portrayed, but that kind of is the nature of reality television.
right.
And
You mean they didn't tell the entire truth?
yeah, exactly. And I mean, the thing that's frustrating about it too is that of anyone in the entire show, the only person that I had an existing relationship with is Nastia Lukin. Like,
Yeah.
I've known her for years. We're friends. I know that she's an Olympic gold medalist. I know that she's incredibly capable, and
Right.
it was just like it was kind of me being frustrated, one at the situation, and also frustrated because I knew that she could do it, and she was doubting herself, and
Mhm.
um, yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, I feel like it was edited to be more dramatic and more tense than it really was, and it was frustrating because then I had people coming online being like, "You're a bully," and I was like, I'm really not." I
No,
was I was sassy to her, but I also were friends. Like I
right.
don't know.
Yeah, it was, I think you were trying to give her tough love and
Yeah, and we're also, as I said, in 120-degree heat and like calorie depleted, and
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think it all makes sense in the end.
yeah,
But yeah, thank you for sharing that. And something else that struck me is that you had to work closely with Anthony Scaramucci, who of course was Donald Trump's press secretary for a few minutes, and of course, the Donald Trump administration incredibly anti-LGBTQ, and Scaramucci was a part of that. And what was that like to have to be in this incredibly pressurized situation with this man who really worked against the lives of LGBTQ plus people?
yeah. I went into the situation with the guard up for sure,
Yeah.
um, and ultimately I ended up liking him more than I expected to, but he was not by any means my favorite person on the show, and he had worked in a cabinet and under a president that stood against a lot of the things that I stand for. So I felt like we were coming from opposite sides. He lasted less time on the show than he did in office, which is remarkable to be honest. Yeah, it was fine. I mean, we were able to work together, and
Yeah.
I mean, he's not one of the people from the show that I'm still texting with,
Yeah.
but there's no bad blood.
Right. Oh, interesting. And were you kind of friends with someone? Were you surprised by any of the kind of relationships that you made in this situation?
I mean, actually, for the most part, I feel like I was friends with pretty much everybody. I
Yeah.
mean, a few people left on days 1 and 2, and so I feel like you didn't even really get a chance to build a relationship. But now we're in episode 8 or whatever, and the people that are still in it, I feel like I have a strong connection with, and I'm still friends with Danny Amendola. We still text. He was in Los Angeles with his girlfriend. We went to get
Nice.
food. I mean, there's a group chat that is kind of always going with the people from the show. But I really, I mean, I feel like I made a lot of friends, and the person I was the most surprised by was Hannah Brown.
Thank you so much to Gus for stopping by. He's impressive whether he's skiing or pulling cars through the sand or pretty much anything he puts his mind to. Special Forces World's Toughest Test is streaming now on Fox. You can visit the Advocate Channel YouTube page for more full interviews. I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist, and I'll see you next time.